welcome to Cage Minds Uncensored. I'm Micah Frankel. We're here to talk about MMA. If you tune in to Red Menace TV, you know this is the place where we talk about people getting punched in the face. Yeah, that's my intro every week for the ProView Network show that I'm part of, Red Menace TV. So check that out on YouTube if you haven't also. Hope you're having a good start to your week. I know everybody wants to talk about Bellator, but I'm going to start off with LFA. LFA 38 took place on Friday night. Still a heavyweight contest in the main event, a title fight with young talent. Jeff Hughes was able to just outpace, outpressure from the boxing to the wrestling, mixing things up. That continual effort Maurice Green had to put in. It looked like it was one-way traffic all night. A dominant performance for Hughes. Hughes, he didn't get the finish. The UFC is all about guys getting the finish. Richard Odoms had been on a big win streak before losing the title to Hughes. Hughes, I don't know, has put on the prettiest performances, decision wins, a grinding effort, really just putting it on his opponents. I think he's UFC caliber. I don't know if the UFC is going to agree. It's hard, though, when you're the LFA champion. Most guys defend once, they're right on the way to the big show. Some guys don't even defend and they get called up depending on how the UFC scouting report, how they feel guys are going to project. Hughes deserves to be in a big show. He scored a dominant win in an LFA main event on Access TV, back-to-back big wins. Of course, defeating Richard Odoms was huge because the guy's a veteran, been on Access TV in the Legacy FC cage so many times. That was a great win. I don't know if beating Maurice Green, even though Green has those glory kickboxing bouts under his belt, if his MMA record 5-1, if that was enough. But we have still such a depleted heavyweight division across the board. Jeff Hughes' name should be majorly in play. You're looking at a Bellator heavyweight tournament with a middleweight, Chael Sonnen. You're a middleweight. You're looking at the Pro Fighters League having their heavyweight tournament. You got Francimar Barbosa. He was a 205er in the UFC. Jeff Hughes should have a big opportunity coming his way quickly. Bevon Lewis, who I had a couple weeks ago, joined me on Red Menace TV. You've seen him before on the Cage Minds Combat Sports News Facebook page. We went live with Bevon before that first Contender Series fight with a decision win over Colin Huckabee. Bevon's going to be back on his way to the Contender Series, I believe, in July. The fight with Colin, people are going to cite he didn't get the finish. Bevon didn't finish. He didn't get a knockout, but he got rounds under his belt. Amazing his anticipation. The way that Bevon is able to read and know that his opponent's going to take that shot and be able to get his hips out of the way and defend. Second top-notch caliber wrestler that we've seen Bevon be able to stall and nullify. And in this fight, you saw Bevon go into that clinch. And people keep referring to Bevon kind of as, in essence, of John Jones. And when you're getting in the clinch and you're sliding the hand through and you're looking to bring that elbow over the top, it's exactly what John Jones has been doing. You can see why people have that kind of distinction, why they see that remnants. Bevon Lewis, though, for not getting the finish, I thought his grappling, his clinch control, being able to score takedowns on a wrestler, these were all big moments in the evolution and improvements of a top prospect becoming that kind of guy that is ready for the octagon, ready for some real tough tasks. I could not be more blown away and impressed by what Bevon Lewis did. And I know he said he was going to show us something. I don't know when I talk to him if he's necessarily going to be the happiest guy or most satisfied with his performance not getting the finish. But I saw a lot of minutes gained, a lot of knowledge learned, a lot of positions that he got into for the first time, and again, executing takedowns on a wrestler. I saw some real good things out of Bevon Lewis. Charlie Brown, talk about a comeback of the night. Chris Baxmier was out wrestling Charlie Brown for 2 rounds, just putting it on him, and then got too aggressive, tried to get a suicide throw, and that And that suicide throw is just so much of a risk versus reward, because when you don't get it, a guy can just fall on top of you into the mount. Chris gave his back. Charlie found the choke. Charlie Brown, a big win. That was great to see. Akam Morvai, non-stop, relentless pressure, breaking Cody Lincoln down. Lincoln just did not want to be in there. It looked like the knee that sets up the finish was devastating. It was more like glancing. It was more like taking a way out. But Marvani, for the 40-year-old, putting on the pressure, just relentlessly fighting, gritting down, and throwing leather. Such an impressive performance. And Mallory Martin controlled everything in round one, had the grappling, was all over Lindsey Williams. But towards the end of the round, let the position get reversed. Almost got submitted. Almost found herself with egg on her face. Made it to the end of the round. Second round came out determined. Mallory Martin takes down Lindsey Williams right away and gets that rear naked choke. Every Friday night that it's on Access TV, Legacy Fighting Alliance showcasing the top prospects in MMA. And coming up this weekend, there's going to be LFA 39. This wonderful event this past weekend took place out in Minnesota, and this coming weekend they're going to be in Val, Colorado. So Cage Wines, myself, and Sal Gomez, thanks to Mac10, always tell you, give a shout out to Edwin Ruiz and Mac10 MMA CK10. Check them out on Facebook. Thanks to Edwin, myself and Gomez Photoworks will be in attendance this Friday night. Your live coverage of LFA 39 in Val, Colorado at the Dobson Arena. We're going to talk about that card, though, coming up more in just a moment. Got that little teaser. It's a teaser. Yes, teasing you guys about what's coming up. So LFA 38, again, a card that Bavon Lewis is the name you will definitely hear more from. And Jeff Hughes deserves a big opportunity. 9-1 now, a heavyweight LFA champion and defended. Come on, Bellator, UFC, Pro Fighters League. Somebody get this man on the card. There was another heavyweight bout. Oh, yeah, there was another heavyweight bout that happened this weekend. The Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix back in action. I was very sure that Frank Mir would come out victorious in this fight. And with the first right hand that Mir landed, clipping and dropping Fedor, thought I was well on my way to being right. But Fedor was able to collect himself, get back up. You saw Mir in the double underhook position. Fedor goes overhooking those underhooks and hit the judo toss. Mir blitzes in 2 forward. Fedor with a slapping left, a slapping right, and then a left uppercut right on the jaw that drops down Frank Mir. In all, it lasts 48 seconds after the follow-up ground and pound does in Mir. The Last Emperor with a throwback fight, a shining moment. Where Bellator wants you to fight, you're probably never done. But there was a good, I felt, instinct going into this one that the loser is done, and Frank Mir comes out the loser. Fedor Emelianenko, obviously more life left in him. We'll see him in the next round against Chael Sonnen. A much more even-sized matchup. Obviously, Fedor is the more well-rounded martial artist. The better submission fighter, the better grappler, the better striker. It's can he wrestle with Chael Sonnen? What kind of gas tank does Chael Sonnen bring in? We saw the impressiveness of Chael Sonnen striking. I can't believe I'm saying that. About being able to just consistently throw volume and find a way to land against Rampage. Most likely, let's go Fedor, turn out the lights at Chael Sonnen, who, again, obnoxiously, after the fight, had to get in and say how much he hated Chicago. Again, you guys were in Rosemont. And just talk trash because he is the heel. But whatever. Fedor won. Is this the same fight we would have had 10 years ago? No. Is the question answered? Would Fedor have went to the UFC and just dominated and still been this legend? Some people will want to say yes. Some people will want to say no. I say that question is still a question because these are not the same fighters they would have been back then. It's still up in the air. in their primes, how would this have looked? How would this have looked? Would it have played out the same? Would it have played out differently? Although we can say now is 10 years after their prime, Fedor Emelianenko and Frank Mir went to battle and it lasted 48 seconds, with Fedor coming out as a TKO victor. The co-main event, Emmanuel Sanchez basically starts off with the standing head and arm choke, is able to finish it on the ground, but it was essentially a standing head and arm choke, taking out Sam Sicilia. 9-2 in the Bellator cage on a tear. Emmanuel Sanchez, probably more than any guy, actually, and I'm going to say that any guy on the Bellator roster, for what he's put in, for how long he's been there, deserves a world title opportunity. He called for it. He said, after Vishal challenges Pitbull for the second time, I should get the winner. I believe that's definitely where you got to go. I believe that it'd be absurd for Bellator to jump AJ McKee over Emmanuel Sanchez. Sanchez has fought bona fide competitors. Has not been set up in a feature fights. I understand this fight, huge favorite. Thought he was going to smash through Cecilia, but it's that name recognition that Cecilia's a UFC vet. How much do you want to put into the credibility, and how much does it matter that you fought in the UFC? Bellator uses it as a marketing tool. That's how much it matters. I don't really think in the echelon of the rankings was Sanchez beating Cecilia that securing of a number one contendership, but this is how Bellator plays it. You destroyed a UFC vet. This should put Sanchez as the number one contender in that Bellator featherweight division. Rafael Lovato Jr., unfortunately, it was not John Salter, but Lovato, Neiman Gracie, Dylan Dennis, all beautiful jiu-jitsu in their victories, as expected. Neiman Gracie, when do we see him matched up with a guy that we've recognized from the Bellator cage before? Dylan Dennis, he's laughable. Tight jiu-jitsu, but that's laughable. It'd be so proud of beating a guy who's 2-5 that you knew you could submit. That's why you dropped to your back. You didn't show us anything on the feet. Lovato Jr., depending on the ailment of what happened to John Salter, this could be his gateway to being the number one contender, to waiting for the winner of Mousasi versus Carvalho. Things remain to be seen. And again, we know what is in the future for Fedor. It's Chael Sonnen. It was Bellator, and let's be honest, for 5 fights in 3 hours with 4 first-round finishes and 2 under 90 seconds, that night took way too long. All over hating the UFC I am in the way that them and Fox like to run their shows, where you can only do 1 fight per 30 minutes, no matter if the fight ends early or not. Pacing matters to mixed martial arts fans. Pacing matters to a short attention span society. That's what we are. You have to kick this action out faster. We're able to see 7 fights every Friday night on Access TV. Sometimes 2 title fights in a 3-hour span. But Bellator took 3 hours to show us 4 first-round finishes. Oh, wait, sorry, 5. You did throw us in the Eric Wisely versus Morgan Singer armbar, which was another 72-second long fight. Good for us. You had a UFC vet like Wisely on there to give some shine to, a name recognition guy. But I just feel like on the production side, Paramount let us down on Saturday night. Transition over to talking about some news. We have big news that the UFC Fight Night in Chile main event has changed. Santiago Ponzinibbio injured, and instead Damian Maia will step in to take on Kamaru Usman. Usman, the number 7 ranked welterweight, Maia number 5. Can't forget, Damian Maia, one of the highest level black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that we have in MMA. Maia, a former title challenger at middleweight, and yes, welterweight. Usman, on the rise, has been on a lot of people's prospect watch lists since dominating the tough season between the Blackzilians and ATT. Usman also making his presence felt on UFC Fight Pass, if you're a fan of Titan FC, being a color commentator on that broadcast. This is a huge opportunity for Usman. His athleticism is a huge advantage against Maia. Maia has had issues in his last 2 fights against excellent wrestlers Colby Covington and Tyrone Woodley. I believe that trend continues. I believe that the hips, that the ability to get out of the way, sprawl, and brawl is going to be too great. That Usman's going to be too wise to get trapped on the ground with Maia. Maia's had a big trouble in these matchups. This is going to be a rematch, and looked like a rematch of what happened against Tyrone Woodley, I believe, because of the ultra athleticism, because of the wrestling pedigree. The 3rd straight fight against a top-notch wrestler, the 3rd straight bad matchup. It's going to look like we're watching a rematch for Damian Maia. Just rewatching what happened against Woodley, what happened against Covington, and now what will happen against Usman. There is a point where Maia's skills, these guys are catching up to it, to a position where they're able to defend themselves or at least acknowledge what he's doing and stay out of that danger zone. There are a lot of guys like Carlos Condit and other guys that we have in the top 10, even Yancy Medeiros. I believe that Maia would be able to close a distance, cut off the cage, and take you down. But against some of these ultra athletic younger guys that are coming up, this is more problematic. And I believe a huge opportunity for Kamaru Usman to put on a devastating performance against Damian Maia, which should place him into the top 10. And as Tyrone Woodley is now off having shoulder surgery, we got RDA versus Covington coming up here right around the corner at UFC 225. You have Robbie Lawler lying in weights. Wonder Boy's taking on Darren Till. Usman, Covington, Woodley himself, some young, hungry killers there in the 170-pound division. And then another bit of news I wanted to take a look at, the UFC Tough 27 finale for the International Fight Week, taking place on Friday, the night before UFC 226. The main event's been announced, plus 3 other fights. Let's talk about those 3 other fights first. Italy's Alessio De Sirico taking on Julian Marquez, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Marquez, devastating knockouts in his Contender Series and UFC debut. Big expectations on him. Barb Honchak against Roxanne Modafferi. WMMA hardcores waiting for that fight with great anticipation. And Raistel Ostovich coming off of a tough victory, looking to take on Montana De La Rosa. They were on the show together. The main event has been announced with Tough 11 alum Brad Tavares, who's on a 4-fight win streak, none more devastating than that recent UFC on Fox 29 knockout of Krzysztof Jotko, that right hand. 3 decisions in a row. That knockout earns Tavares a main event, taking on Israel Adesanya, the style bender. This will only be Adesanya's 3rd trip into the octagon. The first one at UFC 221, a knockout of Dan Wilkerson. That was great. Now at UFC on Fox 29, we also saw Adesanya in action, and Adesanya went the distance in a split decision win over Marvin Vettori. Didn't think it was a split decision, thought it was 29-28 Adesanya. One judge didn't agree, but Adesanya has done enough to convince the UFC brass that he is must-see TV, that he is main event material. He gets a big opportunity here against Brad Tavares, and that a win over Tavares puts Adesanya right in the mix as the hottest contender at middleweight. That win would put him in the top 15. I'm believing right now, Brad Tavares. Let's take a look at the middleweight rankings going to the UFC and their esteemed rankings. You see that Tavares is number 10. So yeah, a win for Adesanya would jump him huge, because right now Tavares is ranked ahead of names like Paulo Costa, who had a lot of momentum but is seeming to fall out of the rankings due to inactivity. Antonio Carlos Jr., a huge win streak, more wins than fights that Adesanya's had in the octagon. The loss to David Branch drops down Thiago Santos, and somehow being inactive, but a fight coming up next weekend, Lyoto Machida has moved up in the rankings, getting that matchup between him and Belfort even closer. Now it's the 12 versus 9 matchup. Uriah Hall supposed to be back in action soon. against Paulo Costa. He's down a spot to number 11, making that 11-15 matchup look a little bit nicer. Interesting stuff there from the UFC rankings, and a great way for them to get Adesanya into some premier spots. Adesanya, if he's able to get past Brad Tavares, is going to put himself into title contention very quickly. The 65-6 kickboxing background, all that combat sports experience, the UFC feels they have a star in the style bender who's been tearing up Instagram, and the proof's in the pudding. When you believe you have a prospect, that's when that guy has his third fight in the octagon, and it's a main event. Outside of a guy like Justin Gaethje, who's fight of the year, prime time, showtime all the time, how many guys their third fight in the UFC is it a main event spot? Then again, also in this time of so many events, we do need main event headliners, so maybe it does make sense. Jump to this weekend, up and coming. Friday night is fight night because there are two big events going on. First off, take a quick look. Invicta FC 29 on UFC Fight Pass. Julia Avila, 4-0, Nevada native, taking on Marcia Allen, a Midwesterner. That one's going to be exciting. UFC vet Pearl Gonzalez taking on Barbara Okoye. Okoye, well-rounded skills, less experience. Gonzalez, can she really start to insert herself and make that charge towards the Invicta FC flyweight title? Pani Gonzalez, looking to rebound from that loss against Sarah Kaufman, takes on a tough Brazilian, Bianca Damani. And the feature fight there, the main event, Sarah Kaufman, the UFC vet, Strikeforce champion with a tremendous boxing. She's won 2 in a row over credible competitors. She's taken down Jessica Rose Clark, who's now in the UFC, and then that great performance against Kinzad takes on Katarina Leaner. Leaner, we've seen her once in Invicta, scored a first-round TKO. Other than that, the German fighter has been the distance in her other 6 victories, undefeated at 7-0. A new Invicta FC bantamweight champion should be crowned on Friday night. You got Kaufman versus Lanier. Friday night, myself, I'll be up in Val, Colorado with Saul Gomez. Gomez Photo Works. Card gets kicked off with a Met K. versus Charlie Williams, a Fit NHB product. A teammate of Tim Means with dynamite in his hands. A Met has trained in Virginia, California, Las Vegas, trained with Dominic Cruz before, has had over 200 amateur fights. Williams, I believe, has won a Sugar Creek Showdown title. Really underrated grappling, but has skills from it, a heavy puncher. In the lightweight division, Harvey Park, who has very well-rounded skills, good kicking, good punching, devastating leg kicks, fabulous submissions, scramble his butt off. Heavy in the mount, takes on another well-versed competitor from the Midwest, Austin Hubbard. This is 9-1 versus 8-2. I have it on good source that the fighter everybody will be talking about after this night is Youssef Zalal, who's taking on Daniel Soto. Zalal at 4-0, a tremendous Muay Thai striker who is just going to put on the performance of the night from what I'm being told. Audrey Perkins returns to the cage for the first time in a long time to securing a fight. It's been a hard one for her. Audrey pulled a stunning upset of Natalie Roy in her pro debut. This is Colorado versus Colorado, as Perkins is now going to take on Macy Barber. We've seen the dynamic striking and jiu-jitsu that Barber has displayed in the LFA cage. Someone's always got to go as the undefeated strawweights go to battle. In the men's flyweight division, Factory X's Brandon Royval takes on Santa Fe's Jerome Rivera, who trains with Destroyer MMA and Latrell Yee. Royval and Rivera both got extraordinary frames, great length for this 125-pound division. The kickboxing is ever so close. Both guys are devastating with their submissions. Rivera more at taking your back or beating you up at the ground and pound when we're talking about the grappling aspect. Royval has a great rubber guard and is always attacking for arm bars and triangles. Cristiano Flach versus Hayward Charles is the co-main event. That's in the middleweight division. And then in the main event, a interim middleweight champion to be crowned as Ian Hurricane Heinrich, the two-time Colorado State wrestling champion who has that awesome power we saw like in his knockout against Daniel Madrid, that big overhand right, and like when he got his scarf hold armbar submission victory, a really well-versed talent takes on Gabriel Checo. Checo, a brawler who can resort back to his jiu-jitsu, not really a wrestler, but a brawler. He gets in there to swing, or then he gets desperate going for the takedowns. I think that Heinrich versus Checo has fireworks written all over for this interim middleweight title fight, and can't wait to see when the champ Anthony Hernandez is back how the fight will go down to unify the titles. So that's Friday night in Val, Colorado. Saturday, hoping to make it to Pueblo, Colorado for Renegade Fight Night Chapter 1, where Jordan Totoni from Factory X and Flavian Pilgrim for the BMF Ranch, Donald Cerrone's BMF Ranch, and spends time at Jackson Wink MMA. They throw down in the main event, not to mention the pro debut of Jalen Fuller taking on BMF Ranch's very own Juan the Demon Gonzalez. Going to be trying to actually get a hold of Flavian Pilgrim and Juan Gonzalez this week, so keep checking up with CageMinds.com, Cage Minds MMA show on YouTube. See if I got those interviews up, able to get a connection with those guys. Also, if you've missed your Japanese MMA this weekend, Rising Fighting Federation 10 is taking place. Online for details. The main event is a matchup of a pair of UFC vets, Koji Haraguchi versus Ian McCall. Haraguchi, infamously known for getting submitted in the last second of the last round of his title opportunity against Demetrius Johnson. But the karate striker has a very good understanding of distance, can zing you with his left hand, bounces around, and his training with the American Top Team has done a lot to round out his skills. McCall, from California, we know about the wrestling, the Thai striking. If healthy, if this fight goes down, Haraguchi is the favorite. What does McCall have in him? Something entertaining to tune into if you're at home Saturday night. Darren Crookshaw is also on the card, not to mention UFC vet Diego Nunez. You have former King of the Cage champion Melissa Carganis, former Invicta FC champion Ayaka Hamasaka, a couple entertaining undefeated prospects in Jair Rosenstruck versus Andrei Kovalov in the heavyweight division. Also Ricardo Prasil. Some prospects, some vets, some names you know. It's always entertaining when you turn into Ryzen. That's also taking place Saturday night. Keep up with CageMinds.com for your LFA prelims, for all of your recap and results on LFA 39. We will be there live. Again, a shout out and a thank you to Mac10, Edwin Ruiz. Check out their Facebook page. It's MMA CK10. Hit that like button. Cage Minds Combat Sports News is how you find me on Facebook. Give that a like. Twitter and Instagram, it's Cage Minds MMA. Also on YouTube, if you have a chance, check out ProView Network's Red Menace TV. Every week I have a segment on there. We got fighters, we got highlights. It's a little variety show, also with some New Mexico flavor. And to recap everything one last time, Jeff Hughes deserves a big opportunity. But Vaughn Lewis, an incredible prospect still to keep a watch on. Emmanuel Sanchez should be the next featherweight title challenger in Bellator. I don't know what's next for Frank Mir, but we did have a return of the last Emperor, at least for one night. I hope he beats Chael Sonnen to shut up. Probably will never happen. This weekend, Invicta 29, LFA 39. Hopefully we'll have some Renegade Fight Night Chapter 1 coverage from Pueblo, Colorado also for you. Keep up with Cage Minds.